What's up? Good. So this reggae guy, you saw that thing I linked you to. This reggae guy, he got Buju Banton. He's like maybe like the biggest reggae guy in the world. You can make a case. He's like the best guy. So then like 7 years ago, he got what's it called? Entrapped. And they did like a sting in the America for whatever reason. They like set him up to buy cocaine, but it was really like a informant kind of thing. Yeah. So then he went to jail. He's gonna go to jail for 10 years. It was only 7 years, so he just got out. It was kind of like Lahavdil, like when the Alter when the Alter Rebbe got released. What is that? Yotes Kislev? Yes. Yeah, it's Lahavdil, like when the Alter Rebbe got released for reggae. But it's not as far fetched as you think, because the reggae thing is all biblical. It all goes back to like Queen Sheba from Ethiopia in the Tanakh and Kings. She comes to Shlomo Melech, yeah. And then she comes and says she brought every question she had, and he just like blew her mind. He like answered every question. She brought all these gifts. It was some kind of like it was like a political marriage or whatever. So anyhow, they had a baby Menelik, and like all these roots African Americans named their kids Menelik in America. Like this yoga teacher in Boston, Menelik, this cool guy, really successful. It's like an African pride thing. And then she got pregnant. She went back to Ethiopia. She had Menelik. Menelik grew up, and when he was 18, he comes to Jerusalem, and he like learns how to be a king from Shlomo. And then he goes back to Ethiopia, and he starts the whole Solomonic. Solomon is the same as Shlomo, right? Yeah. So it's the whole Solomonic dynasty in Ethiopia. And so then that thing, like the whole Rastafarian reggae thing, that's like kind of came out of that whole trip, because they in the 1930s, Haile Selassie was like this Ethiopian president. He's like a world power guy, a black guy, just blew everyone's mind. This black guy could be like a world power. Apparently he was like a dictator almost. My Ethiopian friend told me, but somehow the Rastafarians turned in this whole thing that he's like the Mashiach. He's the Sadikador, this black man. But he had this whole, over like 1,000 years, my friend's grandmother, who I mentioned before, my friend's grandmother's a big expert in Ethiopian Judaism. And I said, like, well, what happened? They started this, the Solomonic dynasty started with Menelik. He said, like, over 1,000 years, the Christians just like worked on, and finally, like, sort of like took over the lineage, and it got all kind of corrupted and stuff. But at the same time, as we know, there's all these Ethiopian Jews, and that whole thing where Israel went and brought them back to Israel. That whole Ethiopian Jewish thing is totally fascinating to me. They're like 1,000 years cut off from everyone, like doing their thing. And when they found them, it was like First Temple Judaism, some like whole interesting thing. They didn't have the Gemara yet, And I know a lot about that because I have Ethiopian friends in Israel. Like they have this whole thing, the Kes and the rabbis, they never recognize the Gemara. They have like this whole thing. They say we're the real lineage. They're the real lineage. It's kind of like the Karaites or something. They're the real lineage. And the younger generation, they're like they had enough, and they went on and they all sort of converted Orthodox and went to Nishmat and went to different schools and learned the Gemara and like moved on with things. Asked Rav Ovadia, like, shouldn't we try to like? People ask Rav Ovadia, shouldn't we try to like stop this heretical Ethiopian movement? And he's like, no, it's just going to kind of die off on its own. It's like interesting, not to make struggle, because it's like the old generation against the young generation. So that guy Buju Banton, the biggest reggae, you can say he's like the biggest reggae star in the world, maybe, or one of them. He's got released like last month. I kept waiting for it, and I forgot to look, and it turned out it happened last month. But it was like a big event. Yeah, like coming out of Gaulis, thing. And he's really. I was watching the videos. He looks like a king coming up. But it's not, it's not perfectly so clear. It's all, on sneas culture and drug culture and weed and this whole thing. How did weed get mixed into the Rasta thing? It's all just a whole huge thing. But basically, so then last night I read the whole history of how'd that get that. So I was reading his biography, and that said he was a Maroon. So I looked on Wikipedia. What were the Maroons? They'd have all these slaves. All these slaves that would they'd either run away from their slave owners, or they'd get their freedom legally, or they'd do revolts, and then they'd start these little colonies, and it was awful. Some of them would live in the swamps in the middle of nowhere because they're running away from the white guys who are in charge of them. They'd formed these colonies in the middle of nowhere, these swamps and these like valleys, like lost. But yeah, it was really awful. Like thing. On the other hand, it's probably cool, you know. Like, so then, and so this Buju Banton, he was like from a family of Maroons in Jamaica. They were all like these people that would like, you know, kind of like the original free men. So the Rastas always have this thing where they kind of feel connected to us because like they were like, you know, enslaved, and they're always talking about, you know, leaving Zion and leaving Egypt, leaving Babylon, and, you know, it's a famous reggae song, "Do you remember the days of slavery?" You know, they're really into that whole like Passover myth thing, Passover story. And but they have this weird like religion, this kind of like, you know, totally heretical heretical thing. That guy, I actually got in charge of like, you know, this Chabad guy who runs this Noahide thing. You know, years ago when Buju Banton first went to jail, I said, we got to get someone to go into jail and like learn Torah with him and prove to him it's all not. And he was into it, and like then he dropped the ball. So like it would have been, when he came out, he would have come out like fully, you know, Jewish if we'd done it right, and then it would have changed the whole world. But I keep thinking all we have to get is a few of these reggae guys to realize that the Rastafarian thing makes no sense at all when you really study it. You know, you'd have to do like a BE on like a month long. If I sat with any of them, like learn for a month straight, you know? So for a while I thought maybe I'll raise money, just give me the time to like learn with these Rastafarians. Like who's gonna have the time for that? You know, I have to start with like, you know, I wouldn't get the big stars. I could maybe get it one of like the, you know, second rate or third rate reggae stars. Just proved them that the whole Rasta thing makes no sense. Then these guys are like the best voice of God on the planet. They just sing and everyone will just hear it and kind of get it. But you know, it's kind of far fetched on one hand. So anyhow, so I read the whole history of. So last night I couldn't go to sleep. I kept waking up and I read the whole history of the Maroons and how like in Haiti they had this huge revolt, and it was the first like revolt in the world where the blacks just totally freed themselves and started like a whole country, you know. But then what's it all about too? It's all about like they had this whole the blacks, they had this whole thing, they're either into voodoo or they're into Catholicism. Both of which are totally trafe. They're both like messed up. And so there's this whole thing like, you know, where they the Catholics would come in to the white Catholics would come in, they say you have to be Catholic or we'll kill you. And so they would pretend to make like they pretend to be worshiping the, they'd really make it part of their voodoo culture. You know, it's kind of masking over. But anyhow, it was kind of like, you know, two versions of a bad thing. The Catholic thing's all messed up, and the voodoo thing's all messed up. And like, it's kind of cool in a way that they freed themselves. It was really like they're fighting Esau, right? Esau, is that the same pronunciation? They're fighting Esau. They're not like really against the Jews. They're against like Esau, like they should be. This is like whole messed up thing, Esau, and whatever. Nowadays, they almost all identify more with like Palestine. They see Palestine's like the struggle for liberation. You know, we were the Haitians and we broke free from the French and English, and Palestine's breaking free from the Israelis. So it's all like mixed up and messed up, you know. And when I say that, people are going to think, oh, you love the Zionist state. No, I don't love the Zionist state. It's just like we have to, like Rav Ginsburg says, we have to make the Israel into like the real Israel, you know. But all this, you know, almost all the reggae thing, all the rap thing, reggae thing, it's almost all like 99% like with the Palestinians, you know. Yeah, it's a big like disconnect, you know. But if you learn the history, you understand where it comes from. You know, like it makes sense. They kind of and you know that whole thing, the protocols of this. Yeah, I'd say, you know, I don't know my history, but I'd say like part of that's true. It's like part of like corrupt Erev Rav, evil Jews that are like, you know, got in with the establishment. You know, Hollywood seems to be like ruled by these kind of weird people, like, you know, Weinstein. You follow the Harvey, you know, Hollywood seems to be ruled by this whole like messed up Erev Rav type of Jewish money making thing. And so like in a way I can get where they're coming from. It's back to the original thing that the Erev Rav, we're not supporting the Erev Rav. We're against the Erev Rav just as much as them, more than them, you know. But they can't. It's too subtle to differentiate, you know. That's why I think like, you know, someone should give me $10,000 and I'll go learn with all the reggae stars, you know, just kind of learn around the clock and prove. I looked at their texts. There's different texts that they use to prove that Haile Selassie is the Mashiach. They're just like ridiculous, you know. They wouldn't hold up for a month, you know. I'm sure it'd take a good month to like get inside and prove it, you know, because I don't know it. But basically. Basically, that's it. You have any questions? No. So yeah, so um yeah, but that's like the Rastafarians are almost always on the side of like the anti-Israeli kind of thing, you know, but they're not totally, but they love Israel. They love the Israel. That's like confused, like they're not sure. I think so. I think the only way, you know, we'd have to convert a few of them on the top. You know, there's this guy Muda Baruka. He's like their Sadiq Ador, I think. That's name. I gotta look it up again. Muda Baruka, intelligent guy. You know, Muda Baruka. Um. So anyhow, that's the basic. What's that?
What about him?
No, he's like the. We don't really allow. They say like Breslov doesn't really allow debates. You know, if we allow debates, you get him to debate. Like, you know, I don't know. I mean, Breslov doesn't allow debates, but still, we get him to like go up against Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs or something. Just you know, he's about smart. He just proved that all this stuff is just like these weird philosophies built on weird philosophies built on weird philosophy. You know. But yeah. It's a big confusion because yeah, never a long story. But anyhow, yeah. Went out to the woods this morning, was kind of thinking about these people, like those Maroons, just like these societies of like escaped slaves living in the woods in the middle of nowhere. It's like in the end of the 1700s, beginning of the 1800s. There was one like I think in Georgia or something. It was like they said it was like I don't know thousands of miles of swamps. It's like yeah, you can imagine how awful like. So that's part of like when I go out to the woods in the morning, I think like, that's kind of uncomfortable and bugs and this and that. Animals might come out of the woods, but you think like compared to something like that, it's nothing. You know, so that's why you know we should at least spend like a little time in nature every day. Get back to our roots. So anyhow, yeah. There's a lot more to be said, but there's a lot more to be said. Yeah, this guy Harry is part of the puzzle. Harry Rosenberg. He has like this farm in Israel. And he's friends with the Marleys. This is the Marley clan, and he tries to. And he went and debated. You ever hear the Black Hebrew Israelites in Damona, Damona, whatever. So he went and debated them in New York. And he kind of like made a Kiddush Hashem, and it kind of didn't work at the same time. I don't know. It was like he's like part of this whole. And then there's someone who said that I have a friend who follows around Berland who he grew up in the Black Hebrew Israelites. Is that right?
Wow.
I think he grew up in it. And he left it, and then one of his friends was like central to the whole scene. This friend left it and became Orthodox. So we were going to go back in and like debate these people. You know, it's like one of these endless projects. It's just like who has time for it, but it's so fun and interesting. But that's all tied up. Yeah, it's all this confusion. All these. The Christians and the Muslims are like the two biggest groups that are confused about the whole Mashiach biblical thing. But then there's like a zillion splinter groups.
Between,
Yeah, there's a zillion like weird splinter groups. The Ross is just like one more. They just happen to have like this great music. Yeah. That's why everyone knows about them. Like the Karaites don't like produce anything interesting for the world. So there's, you know, it's probably just as many. No, I think the Rosses, they say there's between 100,000 and a million of them. You know, who's this and that. But one of the cool things, they're super into health food and being close to nature and, you know, being healthy and exercising and all that stuff. So it's like another crossover. All right, that's symbolically time to close in. Okay. All right, if anyone enjoying this, Eitan, Rachel, Sarita, Tessie, Tamar, Herbert Hack, etc. If anyone enjoyed it, please, or Moshe Shine, hi, what's up? Please post comments. All right, love you guys. Bye.
Nice.
So easy.